digestive system. But in reality, the immune system is largely located in the digestive system. And on top of that, the skin is an immune organ. The skin is loaded with immune activity, as would make sense because the immune system is a defensive system. That means it's here to protect us from the outside world. The digestive system, in a way, it's not a defensive system per se, but it has a defensive role to play because it's the entry point of the outside world into the inside world. So between the digestive system and the skin, you have a very powerful or a major component, a major part of what's called the immune system, the skin and the digestive system, which tells you something. If you have rashes and you have an immune response, if you understand that rashes and redness and itchiness are a sign of an immune response, number one, you got to work on the immune system. And number two, you got to work on the digestive system. That's it. Very rarely are dermatitises, that's a word, dermatitises, caused by a topical condition. Yeah, it can happen to things like perhaps latex or nickel. Some people have nickel allergies. There's a few things that can do it. But for the most part, when you have dermatitis, you have an internal activation of the immune system. And that's all you have to do is address this defensive response, and your rashes, your redness, the dermatitises that you're dealing with will disappear permanently, forever, and in actuality, not superficially like if you were to take an immune suppressant drug. By the way, if you go to the dermatologist, hello everybody, nice to see you guys. If you go to the dermatologist with rashes or redness or dermatitis, guess what kind of medication you're going to get? You're going to get a topical steroid. Why are you the immune system and symptomatic relief? But to get real relief, true relief, you have to be at you have to somehow address the immune activation. There's two things you want to do. Number one, you have a defensive response, and just logic tells you if you have a defensive response, you've got to find out what the offending agent is. That means if you're dealing with a digestive problem, because that's where the immune system is located, and the immune system that shows up on the immune activation that shows up on the skin is the end result of something that has gotten into the body, into the bloodstream. And how else are things going to get into the bloodstream? By the way, you can have these kinds of reactions when you inject things directly into your blood through your skin. So vaccines and drugs that you inject into the skin, those can cause topical reactions because you've now violated the sanctity of the body and entered into the blood directly. However, for the most part, when we have immune activation and we have a defensive response, we have something that has gotten into the body, gotten into the bloodstream through the digestive tract. So that's the first thing you have to do is work on the digestive system. Number one, you got to work on building the digestive system because there's a condition which you probably all have heard of called leaky gut, where toxins can enter into the bloodstream through the intestine. So strengthening, and I'll give you some ideas how to do this here in a minute. Strengthening the digestive system is important. And then eliminating the entrance of what are called antigens, that is immune system activators, which are foods and components in foods, most especially, as we talked about last week, peptides, proteins. So protein-based foods, your really dense protein-based foods are going to be the most problematic, and that is things like beans, legumes, soy, which is a bean, eggs, of course, dairy of all kinds. These are very rich in peptides that can act as immune activators. Gluten, everybody knows about gluten, but there's lots of things in grains that can do it. But you don't want to just focus on the most important problematic foods. People always ask me, what food should I avoid? You can't really do it that way, although if you had to just pick the most likely suspects, it would probably be dairy, grains, and beans, legumes, and that includes peanuts, by the way, nuts also, but like almonds and walnuts and so-called tree nuts. But you really want to see what the specific foods likely suspects. Really doing a food diary is the best way to assess what foods you're having a problem with. And also, if you have flare-ups are your best friend because flare-ups will tell you what you just did. They'll give you a real-time assessment of how your body's reacting to something that you're eating or something that you're doing, most likely something that you're eating. So when you get a flare-up, what did I think to yourself, or hopefully you've been writing stuff down, check what you ate an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, even up to 6 or 8 hours before. Usually it won't be 8 hours. It'll be somewhere between 2 or 3 hours, sometimes right away. A lot of people get results, have reactions right away. And this should not be difficult to do if you do it correctly. I'm doing it correctly. I'm talking about eating one food at a time. If you eat a whole bunch of different foods and you react, you're not going to know what causes the problem. Also, it helps to fast before you start figuring. If you are having a full-blown skin problem, you'll be attuned to that. That won't be a problem. But if you don't have a really bad skin problem, but you do have some kind of reactivity, fasting will make you more sensitive to what your particular problem is. If you don't want to fast, you don't have to do it. I know fasting is really hard, and a lot of people don't want to fast. You don't have to do it, but it helps to kind of make you more sensitized visually and perceptively to what's happening inside your body. If you have a real bad condition, of course, you'll know right away. You don't need to fast. Also, in terms of strengthening the immune system, strengthening the digestive system, probiotics are a must-have. Fiber, you can make your own fiber. We've talked about that in the past with flax seeds. Vegetable fiber is good if you're doing veggie juices. Make sure you're not reacting to anything in the vegetables that you're juicing with. Underneath the mucoid lining, the mucus lining, the intestine, you have connective tissue. So strengthening connective tissue can help. I like algae, and there's anything that has a slimy quality to it, like mushrooms, for example, can help slime things, improve the slimy mucoid nature of the intestine, and have a protective, help you protect yourself from food allergens or leaky gut. So there's lots of good digestive. Hi, Laura. Nice to see you, L'Oreal. There's lots of good digestive health strategies, but there's also topical things you could do. So here's what I mean by that. When the skin is malnourished, under conditions of malnourishment, which can be either because you're not getting nutrients or because you're not absorbing them at the level of the intestine, and all these digestive strategies we talked about can help you absorb nutrients. By the way, digestive enzymes and apple cider vinegar can also be very helpful, and also bile salts. I'll talk about that here in a sec. Excuse me, when the skin is malnourished, especially in fats, essential fatty acids, both omega-6 and omega-3. Omega-6 is very important for the barrier to function, and omega-3s are very important for as anti-inflammatory. A vegetarian or a vegan. The DHA and EPA are not essential fatty acids, but they can be very anti-inflammatory for folks who are dealing with these kinds of rashy conditions. And omega-6s are very important for the barrier. The barrier plays a really important role because when the barrier is breached, that can sensitize the immune system in the skin. So you want to make sure your barriers, the skin barrier, the stratum corneum, is nice and strong. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure you have enough omega-6 fats. And I know there are a lot of nutritionists who will tell you, oh, you don't have to worry about omega-6 fats. You get plenty of omega-6 fats. Not true. You need omega-6s and you need omega-3s. Omega-6s are easier to find. That's true. They're in the food supply to a much greater extent than omega-3s. But we tend to cook our omega-6s. And even if we don't cook with them, if we're getting our omega-6s from grocery store oils, which many of us are, they're processed out. So omega-6 deficiency is just as significant as omega-3 deficiency when it comes to skin health because both are important for keeping the skin rash-free and redness-free. I like Udo. Also has some omega-6s in it. The best sources of omega-6s are going to be evening primrose oil, borage oil. Let's see, I think pretty much most oils, corn oil, almond oil, these are all sources of omega-6, but probably evening primrose oil and borage oil are your two best sources of omega-6s. They're all important. Omega-6s, omega-3s, and fish oil being a special type of omega-3. And then vitamin E is very helpful. That's a really interesting fatty vitamin, vitamin E, a real protective vitamin. It's protective against the sun, it's protective against the environment, and it also helps keep that barrier strong and robust. It's an antioxidant. It protects against oxidation of the stratum corneum barrier, which can occur under conditions of malnourishment or duress. So vitamin E is very important. A is also important, and vitamin D for that matter. Vitamin D really playing a very significant role in helping improve the immune system throughout the body and the skin. Of course, we know the sun is the best place to get our vitamin D. If you're not going to get your vitamin D from the sun, supplement with vitamin D. That's not as good as the sun. The sun's the best. And also vitamin A. Vitamin A and vitamin D work together. They're very healing, and they help. Vitamin A in particular helps stimulate the production of collagen and keeps skin cells dividing at just the right rate. Under conditions of inflammation, skin cells don't divide at the right rate. This is where eczema comes from. And by the way, eczema is a classic sign of an activated immune system. And don't let anybody tell you the main position, the position of the medical model is that there's no known cause. We don't really know what causes eczema. We know what causes eczema. It's an immune activation that's changing the way cells are growing or moving from the bottom to the top. The movement of cells from the bottom of the skin to the top of the skin is tightly regulated, tightly controlled, and inflammatory issues or immune issues or nutritional deficiency issues can definitely affect how cells divide or how cells move up from the bottom to the top. Vitamin A and vitamin D control that process. So under conditions of deficiency, you're going to be more likely to have issues with cells rising from the bottom to the top. You throw in an immune problem, it's very easy to see how eczema can develop. Vitamin A and D can be very helpful for that. And that's taken internally, but you can also use vitamin A to treat some of these conditions. Retinol and retinoic acid, which we've talked about in the past, are active vitamin A, but you do have to be careful because both of these are very stimulating, and if your skin is malnourished or sensitized, you can really cause a lot of problems with retinol and retinoic acid. I talked to a gal a couple weeks ago, and she was using my retinol 1%. Of course, she had digestive issues and thyroid issues, and retinol 1% should not cause a problem with anybody. Most people should be able to handle retinol 1%, at least our retinol 1%. But she did. She had a problem with it, and we had to really do a lot of work on her digestive system and on some of these supplements that I just told you about. So vitamin A, vitamin D, zinc, selenium, topical vitamin C. I'll talk about that one here in a second. I'm sorry, internal vitamin C. I'll talk about topical vitamin C here in a second. Internal vitamin C, essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6, digestive support. These are great strategies, and eliminating problem foods, of course. These are great strategies for internally dealing with rashes, redness, and dermatitis. Then topically, now you're not going to cure the problem topically, but you can sure get a lot of relief topically with Truth Omega-6 Healing Cream. Now, I'm not trying to give you a plug for Truth Omega-6 Healing Cream. Israel, I'm going to answer that question here in a sec. You guys I see a bunch of questions here last. I'll answer these in a second. Truth Omega-6 Healing Cream is just the burn cream. It really is an occlusive, meaning it blocks the surface. To occlude is to cover up. When you occlude the surface of the skin under ordinary circumstances, that's not necessarily a good thing. But if you have dermatitis and rashes, occlusion can help prevent the skin from being activated by an immune response, because dryness makes the skin more sensitive. So I don't usually recommend occlusion unless there is some kind of eczema condition or some kind of rashy condition. Hello, Don, and hello, Peggy. And I love my omega-6 healing cream because, number one, it's occlusive. If you use enough of it, if you use just a little bit, the way a lot of folks use as a moisturizer, it's a great moisturizer. I hate that word, hydrator, softener. Our Truth Omega-6 Healing Cream, if you use it as a hydrator and softener, you only use a little bit. But if you want to use it to occlude, it's great for keeping rashes or eczema, or even for helping accelerate the healing of burns, because it just covers up the surface of the skin, also for eczema. Inclusive, it's got a bunch of vitamin C. Our Truth Omega-6 Healing Cream is in many ways a vitamin C product. And it has that fatty vitamin C that I love so much, that we've talked about in the past, and I'll probably talk about here in the future in another video. It's got the fatty vitamin C. It's got an especially fatty form of vitamin C. My Truth Transdermal C Serum, Truth Transdermal C Balm have a much lighter fatty vitamin C. It's still fatty, but it's lighter. It's more of a liquefied fatty vitamin C. But Truth Omega-6 Healing Cream has got a solid vitamin C, solid fatty version of vitamin C. So not only do you get the occlusion, but you get the fatty vitamin C that is really soothing. It's a great antioxidant. And of course, you get all the vitamin C benefits for long-term stabilization of how cells move up from the bottom to the top, as well as, not to mention, collagen production and the production hyaluronic acid by stimulating the fibroblasts. So omega-6 healing cream is great topically. Also, zinc oxide can be helpful topically. I like my ZNO block, which people use as a sunblock. I'm not selling it as a sunblock, but people use it as a sunblock. It's really a healing product, as all true treatments are. Zinc oxide accelerates healing. It's an antioxidant. It helps helps stabilize sensitive skin, and it also helps stimulate the production of collagen for wound healing. So a Xenoblock or any zinc oxide is another good topical strategy. Vitamin A and D ointment can sometimes help. Of course, those are sources of vitamin A and D. Is topical medication or topical drugs. Now, if you're really, really miserable, steroid creams will just shut down your immune system. There's a condition, by the way, called a rebound effect, where when you're using steroids for a long period of time, using topical steroids for a long period of time, and then you all of a sudden stop, your skin gets unbelievably rashy, painful. I mean, it can be really severe, this rebound condition. Usually happens when you've been using steroids for a long period of time. And a lot of folks who have these kinds of problems don't realize that because it's an immune issue and a digestive issue and a malnourishment issue, they think there's nothing they could do about it. And this is a lot of people, not you guys here, because you're listening to me. You're spending an hour or half an hour on your Saturday listening to me, but the vast majority of people don't know what you're hearing today. The stuff I'm talking about today is not common knowledge. So even though it makes perfect biochemical sense for some reason, rashy the skin can be under this rebound condition. So steroids, if you absolutely need them, cortisone, like cortisone, hydrocortisone, beta-methasone, there's a whole bunch of them, fluocinolone, triamcinolone, alone, O-N-E, or O-L-O-N-E, OWN or Olone, usually tells you you're dealing with a steroid product, like triamcin alone, beta-methasone, cortisone. Those are all kind of steroid substances. And then there's also, and I haven't seen this for a while, I think they may still make it. It's called a Benadryl cream. Excuse me. Benadryl obviously is an antihistamine, great for allergies. You can, by the way, take Benadryl orally if you're really having a, excuse me, in a pinch, and you're really miserable. You definitely don't want to take that a lot. But they used to make a Benadryl topical. They used to also make something called Benacort. I haven't seen this one for a while either. Benacort is a combination of cortisone and Benadryl. I used to recommend that in the pharmacy. Again, only if you're really miserable. What you really want to do is try to address these conditions at the causal level. That is the digestive system, eliminating problem foods, and then using fatty nutrients for the skin, using minerals for the skin, specifically zinc and selenium. Those are the two most important minerals for dealing with rashy, red, irritated skin, dermatitises, eczema, and then topically omega-6 healing cream, zinc oxide or Xenoblock if you're going to use our true treatments. And let me see if there's anything else I want to tell you. I think that's it. One last thing I'll just say here. Nobody should have sensitive skin. And I hear a lot. Your skin should not be sensitive. Human skin is designed to be a barrier to the environment. It's well equipped from an evolutionary standpoint to be able to handle things. Even bacteria and funguses and viruses, they live on the skin. We have a micro. The main roles is to fight bad guys. Good bacteria in your skin fight bad bacteria. Good fungus on your skin fights bad fungus on your skin. Even good viruses fight bad viruses. This is all on your skin. Can you imagine if we could just look at the skin with the right detection mechanism? Sometimes I think about the guy who first invented the microscope. I think his name was Leeuwenhoek. And the first thing he did was he took some pond water and he put it in the microscope. Skin and see all the critters, literally living creatures that lived on top of our skin. We would be absolutely blown away. So anyway, there's lots of things that you could do if you're dealing with dermatitis and rashes and these kind of eczema and these kinds of immune activated skin conditions. But most importantly, eliminate immune triggers and make sure you're using fatty nutrients along with zinc and selenium, and then topically using our omega-6 healing cream and a zinc oxide type product. All right, I talked much longer than I thought I was going to. Let's see if there's any questions, you guys. Cushing's. You once said you would talk about Cushing's. Cushing's is a hypercortisol issue. People who are using steroid drugs sometimes will have the symptoms of Cushing's disease. It's an adrenal issue. You're making a lot of cortisol. All the problems with cortisol are magnified when you have Cushing's. And cortisol, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, can wreak havoc on the body. Cortisol is obviously it's a stress hormone, but it shuts down our ability to grow and repair. Under conditions of high cortisol, we don't grow and repair as effectively. Our bones don't build. We can't build bones. Our muscles don't repair. You have a hard time with anxiety issues and sleeping issues. If you're hypercortisol, cortisol can wreak havoc. Hypercortisol can wreak havoc. One of the biggest problems with elevated cortisol is the thyroid will tend to slow down under conditions of elevated cortisol, and then you're off to the disease races once you're hypothyroid. In fact, that's one of the hidden causes of hypothyroidism that nobody talks about, and that is elevated cortisol, elevated stress response. Excuse me, just a second here. An elevated stress response. So, yeah, Cushing's is just an elevated cortisol issue. It's an adrenal issue. So all your cortisol issues are just magnified in Cushing's patient. Chuck, awesome. I appreciate that, Chuck. Thank you. Colostrum is great. Israel asked about colostrum. Yes, it will give you a boost of energy. Colostrum is first milk. You know, milk is the most powerful food for a mammal. The only problem with milk is we tend to eat other animals' milk, number one. Okay, that's problem number one. That's not the end of the world because there's still good things in milk. Problem number two, and this is a big problem, and that's homogenization and pasteurization. When we pasteurize milk, we lose a lot of the good stuff. When we homogenize milk, we combine the fat and the water together. A little before my time, but some of you guys, if you're older, may remember when milk separated. When the fatty part of milk would come to the top and the watery part would be at the bottom. They figured out how to handle that by homogenizing everything, driving the milk through a crushing machine, and the crushing machine crushed the fat and water together. The problem there is the fat is now really small, and it can enter into the bloodstream through the intestine much more effectively. That's not supposed to happen. So homogenized milk is a problem. Pasteurized milk, you're losing a lot of the good enzymes and vitamins. So milk, unfortunately, even though it's a great food, can be a problem. Colostrum is so-called first milk, and that's the first stuff that comes out of the cow after the baby's born, or if you're talking about cow bovine colostrum, and it's loaded. It is packed. It may be gram for gram the most powerful food on the planet, even more powerful than an egg, maybe. An egg is more broad spectrum. It's right up there with egg. I mean, you can quibble over whether an egg or colostrum is the most powerful food on the planet, but argument could be made for both of those. It is unbelievably powerful food. You got to make sure, though, that the cows are clean, because they give cows drugs, and a lot of those drugs will come out in the milk, and it will come out in the colostrum because the colostrum is concentrated. So if you're going to do colostrum, you want to make sure the cows are really well taken care of. They're not doing drugs, etc. By doing drugs, I mean given hormones and given antibiotics. Crystal says, how do you deal with eczema? Because I scratch so bad, I bleed. Hang on to that. If there's any other questions here, I'm going to talk about in a second. Okay, so Crystal, here, this classic example. This is what we were talking about. And I encourage you, Crystal, to review what we just talked about in the last 20 minutes or so. Number one, look for problem foods. Okay? Guaranteed. If you have eczema that bad, you got food problems. By the way, kids who have asthma are more prone to have eczema. They're kind of related, asthma and eczema, because asthma is kind of the same thing. It's in addition to the digestive system and the skin being powerful centers of immunity, so are the lungs, because again, the lungs are one of the barriers between the outside world and the inside world. Immunity tends to be concentrated at the barriers. It makes sense, right? It's a defensive system. So we have barriers to the inside. That's where you have most of your immune activity, immune concentration, and also immune problems. Asthma, leaky gut and digestive health issues, and of course, eczema and other immune problems, rash, redness, dermatitis, etc. So, Crystal, focus on digestive health. probiotics, digestive enzymes, apple cider vinegar, fiber, slimy substances like algae and mushrooms. I'm sure I'm missing something here. Fermented foods are a great idea. Just kind of focus on digestive health, and of course, obviously, look for trigger problem foods and then eliminate those. Then, and this is equally important for you, Crystal, make sure you're providing your body with nutritional fats, good fats, vitamin A, vitamin E, omega-6, omega-3, and DHA and EPA. That's fish oil and omega-6 and omega-3 essential fatty acids. I would get Udo's blend today. If your eczema is that bad, I would get Udo's blend today. When your eczema is that bad and you're itching that bad, that is a major, major immune problem. And I've seen this before. I know what you're talking about. And the dryness that's caused by fats can destabilize everything, or lack of fats can destabilize everything. So make sure you're being kind and loving to yourself via foods and the digestive system, and then use fatty nutrients. These may take about a week, maybe not that long, depending on how deficient you are. The more deficient you are, the faster you'll notice results, but usually 3 or 4 days at least. So in the meantime, use omega-6 healing cream on the surface of the skin, zinc oxide on the surface of the skin until you can figure out what's causing the problem, until your nutritional supplements kick in. Also zinc taken internally, as well as selenium, and also vitamin C and vitamin E taken internally. I hope that helps you, Melissa, because I know that can be really miserable. Hey, Melissa, is it the same Melissa? Oh yeah, same Melissa. Melissa says, is ester C, calcium ascorbate the right vitamin C supplement to take? You know, here's the thing on ester C. Ester C is minerals ascorbates. That means that there are different minerals attached to vitamin C. So you got calcium, zinc. I don't remember all of them. There's calcium ascorbate, zinc ascorbate, magnesium ascorbate. There may be potassium ascorbate in there. They're basically these minerals that are attached to the vitamin C molecule. Very cool thing, right? The problem is you don't get a lot of vitamin C. And vitamin C, in my experience, to get the real good vitamin C benefits, you got to have a lot of it, grams of it. And it becomes very expensive to use ester C to get grams of vitamin C. So what I would do if it was me, because it's still a good form, it's still a good way to get vitamin C, is these mineral ascorbates, is what I would do is I would use both. I'd get the mineral ascorbates, and I would also use ascorbic acid, which is cheap and very effective, and then use your ester C with your ascorbic acid powder. I would just, for vitamin C, just plain old ascorbic acid powder. You can buy it in the drugstore for like $10 for a 2-month supply. It's ridiculously cheap. And that's why skincare companies will use ascorbic acid topically when it's really not an effective ingredient at all. And I know I have people arguing with me all the time. I'm sorry, I'm just giving you the biochemical facts here. Ascorbic acid topically is a waste. And the reason you see it in products is because vitamin C is so darn cheap in the water-soluble ascorbic acid form. You can take advantage of that inexpensiveness or inexpensive nature of ascorbic acid by buying ascorbic acid in the health food store or on the internet, and then using it internally. And it's really, vitamin C is just super underappreciated and a very important vitamin. And I think that is all. Misty, thanks for popping by. We didn't have a lot of people on today. I hope that was helpful, you guys. Long story short, nobody has to have dermatitis, rashes, eczema, sensitive skin. These are all the skin's cry for help. That's how you want to look at these conditions. The skin's cry for help. I've been looking at the skin in the body for so long that when I see the skin and it's diseased, whether it's these rashy kinds of conditions or acne or psoriasis or really any kind of disease or pathology in the skin, when I see it, to me, as an advocate and a lover of the skin and somebody who's been studying the skin for a long time, I can actually hear the skin crying. I can see the skin in pains. There's something, and it's not like literal, but there's just a feeling that I get when I look at this kind of skin, that the skin is crying out for help. And that's how you want to look at your skin problems. In fact, that's how you want to look at all your physical problems, health problems, that is. It's your body crying for help. And unfortunately, the medical model, and this is not about individual doctors, but the medical model feels okay drugging the body or cutting things out of the body or electrocuting the body or ablating the body or radiating the body. And to me, it seems so cruel to do to a body or a skin. It's nothing, just asking for help, you know, and instead of helping the skin when you have a rash or dermatitis, what we should be doing is figure out what the skin is asking for. in my opinion anyway, what does the skin need? What is it looking for? Why is it crying for help? What kind of help can we give it? All right, let's see here. I think that might be all. What about if Israel says, what about vitamin C ester is L-ascorbic acid plus palmitic acid? Okay, that is very complicated. Vitamin C ester is L-ascorbic acid plus palmitic acid. Okay, that's ascorbyl palmitate you're talking about. And that's the vitamin C, the form of vitamin C I was talking about earlier when I said that there's a real heavy form of vitamin C that I use in my omega-6 healing cream. That is what you're talking about, Israel. That is ascorbyl palmitate, ascorbic for vitamin C, palmitate for palmitic acid, and it is a yummy form of vitamin C. However, you never see it in high concentrations in products because it is so stable. It's incredibly stable. It's like a rock of stability. You can't really do anything with it. The reason omega-6 healing cream is so powerful and so effective is because we figured out how to do something with this very, very stable rock-like form of vitamin C to allow you or allow your skin the benefit of this incredibly valuable molecule in a way that you can't find in other products. There's no other products that have this kind of technology that allows the ascorbyl palmitate to really have an effect on the skin. And it is one of my all-time favorite ingredients. Now, the other vitamin C that I talked about earlier, the liquid form of vitamin C, that's ascorbyl tetra isopalmitate. That means it's not just ascorbyl palmitate, which is like a rock, it's ascorbyl tetra palmitate, 4 palmitates. It's got vitamin C and it's got a palmitate, 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 palmitate. And all of these palmitates turn the rock into a liquid. I'm not going to get into the chemistry of it. It's really cool if you're like organic chemistry, but the bottom line is having all of these palmitic acids liquefies the vitamin C and turns it from this rock form that ascorbyl palmitate is into a liquid form, and it is really, it is an incredible ingredient. For my money, it's the most important, it may be the single most important ingredient you could ever put in your skin, and I use a lot of it. And it's expensive as you know what, really, really expensive, hundreds of times more expensive than ascorbic acid. Israel says, can you take it internally? You don't need to take it internally because internally ascorbic acid works just fine. Palmitic acid, having fatty vitamin C, is only important for the skin because remember, the skin is a fatty organ. So the skin is specifically designed to repel water and water-soluble ingredients. So ascorbyl palmitate and tetraisopalmitate are helpful for the skin because they can help the vitamin C penetrate in a way ascorbic acid does not penetrate. But internally, there's all kinds of ways, mechanisms in place in the intestine for the absorption of vitamin C. In fact, on a cell for the ascorbic acid, I should say. In fact, on the cell itself, ascorbic acid is very well handled. Sometimes you'll hear alternative practitioners say that vitamin C is not really a vitamin, or vitamin C is not really complete. And in a way they're right, but in a way they're wrong. In a way they're right because you always want to have cofactors with your vitamins, and vitamin C is found in fruits and vegetables, and fruits and vegetables are loaded with cofactors that help the vitamin C work. That's true. However, you can't say that vitamin C or ascorbic acid is not a vitamin because it has incredible benefits as ascorbic acid. So much so that the cell itself has a way of connecting or combining with ascorbic acid and then directing that ascorbic acid inside the cell. And that's just ascorbic acid without all the other wonderful cofactors that are associated with ascorbic acid in foods. Okay, so I hope that is explainable, easy to understand. And that's it. All right, you guys. We'll post this as always on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. I thank you so much for all of your love and support and kindness. And thanks for using the truth. Truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com for our truth products. And I think we actually have some specials going today through the weekend. Truthtreatments.com. And check out our now going on 2,000, actually a little over 2,000 4- and 5-star reviews at truthreviewed.com. I am pharmacist Benjamin Knight Fuchs signing off. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you hopefully next week. Bye.